full time. But then amidst all of this, in March of 2015, I got a call from Facebook. And from there, my life took a very dramatic turn, and things turned out very differently than I could have ever expected. Now, before I go into that and tell you about the transition from Google to Facebook, I have to take a step back and give you a little bit of context on my background with Sheryl Sandberg. So Sheryl and I are from the same small neighborhood in South Florida. We grew up like houses apart, went to the same grade schools. We both started at Google back in the early days. We both pursued this passion for helping women. We both eventually ended up at Facebook. Now, despite what might seem like a parallel path, our trajectories were very different. For example, she went to Harvard twice. Well, she got 2 different degrees. She didn't have to like repeat it. She's a billionaire, and she runs Facebook. I, on the other hand, went to University of Florida. Go Gators! I love that. That was the first time it's ever happened. So then you'll understand when I say that my biggest accomplishment upon graduating UF was like learning how to roll a joint. And actually, that's not true because I learned that in high school, but you get the point. So we were very different, and it's maybe no surprise we'd actually never met before I started at Facebook because she was 10 years older than me, so we didn't know each other growing up. And at Google, she was like 10 layers above me. I always thought about reaching out to her, but never really knew what I would even say. But then in February of 2016, I started my new role at Facebook, and my very first week on the job, I found out that Sheryl would be speaking on stage at our sales conference the next week in San Francisco. So I thought, oh, this is a perfect opportunity. I email her, I explain all our connections, and ask if she has just a second to shake my hand, meet in person the next week at the conference. And she was super gracious. She wrote me back like right away, and she gave me 20 minutes on her calendar in the green room just before she was about to go on stage. So I was like thrilled. And I go there the next week and meet her assistant outside the green room where I was told to go. And I really botched the introduction to Sheryl, which I explain in the book. You can read it there. I don't want to relive it, actually. So we have this conversation, it's fine. And then all of a sudden she mentioned something about the career challenges of single moms. Because I had mentioned in the email I'm a single mom of 3 kids. And so just ask me something like that, and I'll just go on. I started babbling on about, all the hard times in my life and what they've taught me about perseverance and confidence and self-respect. And in the middle of all of this, she pauses and says, do you mind if I just grab my laptop? I want to take this down. This is really powerful stuff. And I was like, of course. So she went on to literally transcribe the rest of the meeting. Everything I said, she typed into her laptop. And at the end, she closes her laptop and says, look, I have to go, but I'm writing a book on resilience, which then became her next book, Option B. And I think your story would be perfect to feature. Do you mind if my researcher gets in touch with you? Whatever. I was like, absolutely. So she goes on stage, I leave the green room, and I was like, mic drop. Second week at Facebook, clearly Sheryl Sandberg loves me. We're gonna be best friends. And I had all these crazy fantasies, we're gonna write books together and go on girls trips that she'll pay for, and it'll be amazing. And not to spoil the ending here, folks, but none of that actually happened. And because the next week I got back to New York, and I never heard from Sheryl or her researcher again, which was actually fine at the time because I was dealing with much bigger issues in my new job. So getting back to that call in March of 2015, that was from a senior executive at Facebook. It was a recruiting call. And I was really happy at Google at the time. But the person who called me, I refer to her in the book as Kimberly. She is one of these people that's really over the top charming and knows exactly what to say. I feel like, oh, she gets me, which was mostly you're so amazing. I'm like, you really understand me. And so eventually she won me over months of time, and I joined Facebook. Now it's my 3rd week at Facebook, so first week orientation, then conference. Now it's my 3rd week, and it's my first in-person meeting with Kimberly, the one who had recruited me all those months. And I hadn't really seen her since I started, And I wait for her in the conference room. She comes in, like shuts the door a little too hard, and looks at me. It was like everything drained from her face. Like I was not looking at the person I had known all along. And I compared in the book, like, do you guys ever see Pee-wee's Big Adventure? It's funny how like people don't want to admit they've seen this movie, and it's really a good movie. It's okay if you've seen it. And if you have, maybe you remember the scene with Large Marge and Pee-wee's in the truck, and like 1 second she's human, she's like human, and then she like rips the mask off and bleh, eyeballs start shooting out. That was what it was like. It was like this mask had been ripped off. And I'll never forget, the very first thing she said to me when we sat down was, mind if I give you a little bit of feedback? Now, at this point, I cannot even send an email or create a calendar entry because they use Outlook. So it was like I hadn't even done anything yet. I was like, is this about my use of calendar? But sure. Anyway, so she says, look, Marissa, we hired you because we know you're good, so you don't have to go around trying to prove it to everyone because you're coming off frazzled and out of control. And the punches to the gut kept coming. I asked too many questions. I'm never happy, blah, blah. So I only speak up once during all of this, and it was to ask, can you give me like some examples of how I'm appearing this way? Because it's certainly not my intention. She just like dismisses with a brush of her hand and says, look, Marissa, you're just not the same person you were in the interview process.